Hello guys, welcome to the Lola Show. And in this video today, I have a special guest, Jon Justice. You may know him from the YouTube page, which I do as well, My Nerd World, and he's an author. And he wrote a book called Embark, and his second book is Treasure in the Darkness, and his third book, which I'm currently getting to that right now, The Vanishing War. And hey, welcome so much, Jon. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on, man. I really do appreciate it.
Oh yeah, you know, I was talking off area. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about you and how you got to the Star Wars podcast, and you know, obviously your prior radio shows before. We talked a little bit. We got some familiar stuff, and yeah, I'm so humbled because I love your podcast. Like I was telling you, I started right when Last Jedi came out, and you know, obviously it was a big deal. Everybody's saying this, they say that, and I'm getting bombarded. Like, wow, why is people getting a lot of hate or a lot of no? So I YouTube people, and I like to listen to people's YouTube, and I stumbled upon yours. You know, say, oh wow, this guy's doing like an hour and a half show, and I like people who have Star Wars podcast. I want to hear a lot because you know I'm kind of on my own always, so I don't really talk to too much people about Star Wars. I love to, and yeah, I really connected. The biggest thing is I'm like, wow, this guy's got so many subscribers, and wow, he's a radio host, and the big thing is like you're so tangible. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's answering every question of mine on his show, and you know, he's emailing. I'm like, you know, I know we're not, you don't put anybody on a pedestal or nothing. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's so tangible, you know, and that's what I like. And I'm just a simple man in the universe, as Django Fett says, trying to make my way through this YouTube.
Well, you know, thank you so much for that. Yeah, when I started doing the Star Wars podcast, I was listening to a lot of podcasts.
Okay.
And you know, I consume so much Star Wars information. You know, I follow the Reddit pages. And,
okay. Yeah.
you know, read the articles, and there was a lot of good shows out there, but I wasn't finding a show where it was just somebody talking about their love of Star Wars. You know, just kind of free form. And I've gotten a little structured since then, but you know, I like listening to I like listening to people who are just passionate about Star Wars, talking about how much they love it. And I couldn't really find that. So, you know, I'm a radio host. I've been doing radio for 20 years. So why don't I just do that? So that's why I started the podcast. I'm like, you know what? I'm not finding exactly what I'm looking for. Maybe somebody else out there, or there are other people out there that are looking for something similar. So initially when I started the show, it was just like, I'm going to sit down and talk about, you know, what I'm into when it comes to Star Wars for that week for 45 minutes to an hour, and see if people enjoy it. And people do. So it worked out well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, you caught my eye, and like I said, I tuned into that. I was like, wow, this guy's professional, son. But it makes sense because you have a radio background. I mean, you got sound bites, and you got all this stuff. I'm like, whoa, this guy's doing it.
Yeah, I had people email me. It was really funny. I've had people email me throughout over the course of the past few years, and they'll say, you know, you've got a voice for radio. You should look into doing broadcasting. And I was like, well, that's what I do professionally. You know, it's funny when I kind of figured people in radio would know the podcast, but now there's a bunch of people outside of radio finding the podcast, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah, and yeah, I'd like to take you back at the beginning. So you're a radio host, and we kind of discussed we actually lived in the same city, in the same state,
right?
And yeah, that kind of brings us up to speed to now to the.
Well, yeah, I assumed when I saw you were from Tucson originally, I assumed that you found me because I was doing radio in Tucson. So when you told me you never listened to my radio show when I was in Tucson, I was like, wow, you really did find me, not even through the fact that we were living in the same city.
No. Yeah, so you did you did radio for a while, and then you what did you say, like 2015 is when you started this?
Yeah, so I start, you know, podcasting was taking off, and I do podcasts for the radio show that I did, and it came. So I was doing. I decided to do 3 podcasts, and I still kind of focus just on Star Wars, but there was a NASCAR podcast. I was a big Dale Jr.
Oh yeah.
So I did a Dale Jr. podcast, and then I did a Depeche Mode podcast, which I still do on occasion. and then I do my Star Wars podcast. And the reason why I did those three things was because I'm into all three of those things,
Yeah.
and I'm consuming so much information that it made it really easy to do a podcast, because I'm like, well, I'm already filled with all this information and consuming all this information about these three things that I love.
Yeah.
It was fairly easy to just go and do a podcast. So I really just focus on the Star Wars one because that's the most consistent when it comes to sort of content. I mean, right now it's slow in terms of views, but yeah, like I said, it was right before The Force Awakens came out, and I'm like,
okay,
you know what? With all these movies coming out, this is a really good opportunity to start a new show. So that was the initial idea. The whole run up was starting the podcast was the run up to when The Force Awakens came out.
Okay, yeah, and people know on my other show, mine was right after Rogue One, right before Rogue One. I was like, I started getting into all these YouTubers and stuff, and I'm like, wow, can I do this? I just want to say stuff about Star Wars myself,
Sure.
And yeah, and that's when I kind of have this little channel myself. I'm glad you did the prequel, because I listened to your podcast a lot. I'm like, I wonder what he thinks about the prequels. And finally, I got your thoughts on, did you like it? I know some people didn't like it, or I didn't even know that before I started YouTubing. I was on my own. I loved all the Star Wars, and once I started getting to YouTube, I didn't know people had a hate for the prequels at all. I'm in the dark. I'm just by myself, so I didn't know anything. I had no opinion but my own. I loved everything.
It's interesting because I really feel like it's interesting that you say you weren't aware of sort of the negativity towards the prequels, because I think so much of the negativity around the prequels, and certainly the sequel trilogy, right? The controversies surrounding The Last Jedi and even The Rise of Skywalker. I'm convinced that's largely due to social networking. I think if it wasn't for social networking and if it wasn't for YouTube, while those are good things, it does perpetuate a lot of negativity. And unfortunately, oftentimes the negative gets way more attention than the positive does, and it generates more comments and controversy. And I find that really unfortunate. I actually think it's really cool that you weren't aware there was any negativity towards the prequels, because when I was growing up with the original trilogy, there may have been like friends that had issues with certain things, but we all just loved Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced if you put the original trilogy out today with social networking, it would be nitpicked and it would be complained about just the same way the sequels are right now.
Oh yeah. I mean, to go a little bit off topic, I don't know. I watched The Last Dance with Michael Jordan and all that, and they said the same thing. Like they wouldn't have all this LeBron stuff, and back in the day of Jordan, because he didn't have social media. I mean, he had newspapers and stuff, right? But it wasn't like this, where you can tweet everything every second, critique everybody's a critic now, and and you're persuaded. Yeah, so it's kind of like that.
Well, and that was part of the reason too with the podcast. I had changed the name of the podcast for a little while, but then I moved it back. I had changed it to Positively Star Wars, but I just didn't like the way that it flowed, so I switched it back to just being My Nerd World. But another one of the reasons why I did the podcast was because I was also tired of hearing all the negativity. Are there problems within Star Wars? Sure. Are there things you can nitpick? Sure. But I don't like doing that because I love the stories and the movies so much. I'd rather just focus on the positive stuff and not the negative stuff. And so many shows just wipe out on being negative about Star Wars. And I get tired. And it's not to say you can't criticize, but I get tired of hearing it.
Yeah. And that brings to the same point, the testimony of your show. Like I said, I watched The Last Jedi, and I was being bombarded. I'm like, do I like it? Do I not like it? Because at the time I'm new to all this YouTube stuff, and people are bashing it already. And I found you already. I'm like, oh, this guy ain't doing that. And he's actually positive. And then I was like, maybe you're overly positive. And then I'm like, wait, well, maybe it's me. And then I'm like, that didn't go back to the roots. What I like. I like this, I like that. Don't worry about who. You know what I mean? They're not involved in my life, so why?
It's also it's all subjective. I've had people that have criticized me in the email. They're like, you don't complain about anything. You're not critical, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not that way.
Yeah.
That's just, it's all subjective, and I love all of Star Wars. Some movies are better than others, but
Yes.
I don't care. I still watch them all.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that brings a good point as well. And you're a movie lover as well. And I went to college for film. I wanted to be a film. I didn't make it, but I wanted to be a film, producer and stuff and all that. So I had interest. So I watched a lot of movies. That's when YouTube started coming around. I'm like, oh, maybe I can do my own thing. Then, social media is so relevant now. You can do whatever you want. You can post stuff. So that's where, so I love movies in general. And yeah, like I said, yeah, and it just kind of got overwhelming with all these podcasts and stuff, and of other people. And that's why a little bit background on me. So I was a refugee in Thailand. I was born in 1979, and I came to Arizona 1980, and we lived in the basement. The sponsors brought us in, and growing up, not having a house yet, obviously, my family, I went upstairs and I grabbed some VHS tapes of Star Wars, and I just started watching them myself, and that's how I got hooked. By myself, like a little kid. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then the prequel came around, and kind of did my own thing, teenager, blah blah. I'm like, oh cool, Star Wars, new Star Wars. But obviously, I was into my own world. I was into music and stuff. I had a band and all that, recording and stuff, and then actually had some hard times, and I actually became a Christian, born again Christian. And when that time, I think 2004, it was like, okay, Bible says to live righteously. I had to kind of forsake all my friends, start a whole new life, go into the military. So that, I threw everything away, all my media stuff, except Star Wars. I'm like, Star Wars is good, There's no blasphemy, there's no bad words. Can I be cool with that? And my friend who was, discipling me at the time, like, yeah, sure, try, you're a Christian now. And I used to watch the prequels all day, every week, every day, so by myself again, just living Star Wars with no.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. That's cool. That's really cool to hear. It's interesting because I'm a Christian as well, and I host my weekly radio show. I'm a news talk radio, news talk show host full time, and I don't at all, but I don't try to, like, even with the podcast and on my radio show, it turns a lot of people off. You know that. You say that you're a Christian and all that.
Oh yeah,
they'll tune you out. They'll be like, oh, whatever. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So a lot of times the way that I approach it is, rather than being like overt, I just try to show by example.
Yes.
I want people. For me, it'd be great if people listen to the show and if they find out or they figure out that I'm a Christian, they go, oh, I can totally see that. I can totally see how it is, because I think that's a good way. It's not like I'm not doing my radio show and I'm not doing my podcast to try to spread the word of God by any stretch of the imagination, right? Because I'm talking about Star Wars, I'm talking about news and politics.
Yeah.
But, we do want to lead by example. And I think that's part of the reason why I've had, a somewhat level of success in the podcasting, because I think people pick up on that. And it really goes back to just being positive, and not being overly critical. And I probably get too critical and negative on my radio show, but I don't do that.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't, actually, that's another thing of your radio, maybe not your radio, I'm sorry, your YouTube page. Like I said, I agree totally, because when I became a Christian, I got so jealous. I mean, I was evangelizing, and then I got obviously held back a little bit. Like, hey, you're taking, you know how it is, family. Yep. You're taking this too serious, aren't you? You're born again, and you want to spread. And now you're getting a little too deep. And now I started to find out, now that I'm older, it organically happened. That's how I found it. And I would have, stay with your YouTube page, whether or not. I didn't even know. I love the thing you always say, God first, family, and then whatever else next. I always used to say that all the time. My marriage first, family, and then whatever else I have left, Star Wars. And I was, hey. And, and like I said, I'm like, I wonder if he's a Christian or not. And, and like I said, now we're in the media age, and now I found out to organically do it, I barely, it's not about, hey, let me give a message at the end of my Star Wars podcast. Like, what? That don't make sense. So yeah, if it happened, you go randomly, you flip out like, hey, he talking about God, or he mentioned something real quick. I wonder.
Sure.
And that's it. And then, like you said, whatever happens, happens. And I don't mind. I don't mind anything now. Whether you're Christian or not.
Well, and I find that often that's it's I think there's pluses and minuses. Obviously, I mean, there's I like the fact that what I try to do is I try to incorporate, if I talk about my faith at all, I try to incorporate it when it's appropriate. You know what I mean?
It sounds organic. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, and it's fine when people can do whatever they want to do.
It.
But for me, it's like, hey, if it fits, and I've done this on the podcast, talking about storylines and plot points and subtext themes. I've taken, this is a good moment to sort of equate it to how George was using the Force. And a lot of people back when we were younger, when Star Wars came out, sort of equated Star Wars to Christianity and the Force being God and all that kind of stuff. So that's really awesome, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's another thing that we have in common. But I want to jump into your book.
Sure.
So I've been listening to your podcast, your YouTube page, and then it's kind of funny. You actually uploaded a video of you. I actually saw your face finally. I'm like, hey, because you were announcing something. I'm like, what is he announcing? What's going on? Because you kept saying, I got something new coming out of the pipeline. I'm like, oh yes. And then I saw your face. I'm like, hey, I actually see you. And you're like, hey, I'm writing a book. I'm like, oh my goodness, a book? Okay. And like I said, I feel as a listener, even though I don't know, I'm not sure about being inspired to be an author, but I felt, maybe we all do. I'm with you on this journey. We're vicariously living through you. I'm like, I know someone that actually wrote a book. I mean, I know other pastors that wrote a book, but what I mean? That's how I feel. And I'm going through it. You know me. I have kids and stuff, so I do audio, but I listen to it. And I made my review on it. But yeah, go ahead and kind of maybe explain a little bit to my YouTubers. Yeah, about your book and everything. What's going on now? Where you're at?
Yeah, so I'll try to do the shorter version.
Sure, yeah.
When I was still living in Tucson, I had this, and again, it really came out of my love of Star Wars. I love watching the documentaries.
Me too.
I watch, I listen to all the commentaries and
me too.
consuming like all the content, right? It's and I create every day with my regular radio show, and a part of that is telling stories. You got to take the news of the day and present it in such a way where it is almost like you're storytelling off of real world events. Anyway, I was really curious what it would be like to create something fantastic, create a story with characters and build a world. Having loved Star Wars, and I was a fan of Star Wars before I was a fan of anything when I was 5 years old. And so 47 years old now, I'm going, man, what would it be like to do what George Lucas did?
Yeah.
So, if I had the money, I would have done a movie, right?
Yeah.
That's what I would have done, right? But I don't have the money to do a movie. I'm not a big reader, but I thought, you know what? Let me write a book. Let me see if I can challenge myself to do that. So I had this idea in my head. I wanted it to be an adventure and fun like Star Wars. I wanted it to be set in the future on Earth so that I could eventually get everybody off of Earth and out among the stars. I didn't want to copy what George Lucas did,
right.
With the galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
I wanted it grounded in reality.
Yes.
So I had this idea of, and I like the Fast and Furious movies.
Oh, okay.
I'm not like a huge fan, but I like the Fast and Furious movies, and I liked the concept, the idea of, these 5 friends, and their customized automobiles, right, going on these adventures in Fast and Furious. And I was like, what if I took that idea of these 5 friends and had a bit of a romance in it, but instead of cars, it would be in the future, with spaceships and flying vehicles, and a part, where Earth has now, and as I've used for the line of the books, in the future, air and space flight replaces car culture.
Okay.
So that was the original idea, was, Fast and Furious with Star Wars. And so I just sat down one day, and I think it was late 2014, maybe early 2015, and I just started writing.
Yeah.
And it took me about 3 years to get the first book done.
Yeah.
A lot of editing.
Yeah. I can only imagine. Yeah.
It's a big, but that first book's a big book. And, but I found it so enjoyable and so rewarding. I decided to keep writing, and that's why, now I've got a trilogy.
Yeah. And I like it a lot. I mean, it's the first time I kind of, I did book reviews now. Actually, you're the first book review, and I can see it totally. I mean, I'm reading it. You're talking about. I think was you set in Arizona, or
yes.
I heard Camelback. I'm like, I'm familiar with these.
Yeah. So for your reference, so essentially, Taft, the main protagonist, lived. Yeah, he lived basically close to Prescott. That's where I had it in mind.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Katha was actually living down in Tucson, so she would fly from Tucson. Camelback was Phoenix, because my mom lives in Prescott.
Okay.
So I wanted an Arizona connection, so like in the book, I kind of played with the names a little bit because it's in the future, but that's their location. Katha's in Tucson, and then Taft's up in an abandoned field up near Prescott.
Yeah. There's no spoilers yet, but I just got the third book. Like I said, I really prefer audio because having small kids and stuff is hard for me. But once I get that audio, I just run through it.
I'm actually I got a screen right to my right, and I'm editing the audio book right now.
Oh yeah, oh cool.
That's what I was doing before we talked. I'm actually editing. I'm editing the whole thing's recorded. I just have to edit all the chapters, and so that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm editing the audio book.
Okay, yeah, and I'm definitely gonna do a review on it and probably the whole trilogy. No spoiler. Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, I got really I guess a couple more questions. The villain. He reminded me of Ben Mendelsohn in Rogue One. I'm not sure.
Yes.
Reading
very
that.
Much. Yeah, that was definitely. Actually, it's really funny. I don't have it. I drew up when I was and I had the characters on the cover, and the art that I used for Sint Argum, the villain, was director Krennic from Rogue One. I used it as a placeholder. So yeah, you picked up on that. That's exactly how he was supposed to look.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wow. See, getting these little small insights will probably make it more enjoyable when I read the book more and more. Yeah, everybody definitely, go get that book. Yeah. I mean, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, this is great to meet you and to talk to you and kind of, get to know each other.
Absolutely, yeah, man. You want to have me back on? Let me know. If people want to go and check the book out, they can go to mynerdworld.net. You can find the podcast there. But no, man, thanks for having me on. And you want to have me back, just let me know. I've got maybe when the audio book comes out, I've got a fourth book that I'm working on that's a spin-off, and then I'll have there's a fifth book that'll be the spin-off book that'll take place after the third book.
Okay.
And then there will be a fifth book that will be the start of a new trilogy in the same universe. So I'm going to continue writing within this universe and growing and expanding.
Wow.
So, yeah. Wow. So I'm glad you enjoy it, and I'm glad you enjoyed the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Likewise. Thank you for coming on. Is there anything else you want to plug in? Yeah.
I mean, if people on Twitter, you can find me at Jon Jon Justice or at Be My Nerd World on Twitter. Same thing with Facebook and Instagram, and people can just go to mynerdworld.net, and hopefully they can go and check out the book, ebook, paperback, or audio book. And the audio book for The Vanishing War will be available here in a few weeks. All right. Yeah, thank you again, and definitely will please like and subscribe to both of our YouTube, and follow Jon, and talk to you guys later. Bye. Bye.